Hello and welcome to a year-end edition of Politics on France 24. François Picard in for Mark Perlman. We will win, Nicolas Sarkozy told Barack Obama back in April. Well, only half of that prediction came true.
Vous êtes bien plus.
You are much more than a people asking for a change. You're already part of a movement which is growing all over Europe and maybe the whole world, which will carry our values, our aspirations and the changes we expect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Merci.
So, what has the rest of Europe seen since the French elected their first socialist president nearly a quarter century? The government pledged an unprecedented 30 billion euros in belt-tightening. It'll take a lot more to dent the deficit. Meanwhile, unemployment has continued to rise. Growth has remained anemic, with an opposition torn by infighting and policies that so often depend on the rest of the Eurozone. Have politics in this country really changed in the 9 months since Election Day? With us for our look back at 2012, a brand new member of parliament elected to one of 11 brand new seats for French citizens abroad. Socialist Axel Lemaire represents Northern Europe and takes the Eurostar home to her constituency in London. Also with us, Londoners, by the way, love Arnaud Danjean's home constituency of Burgundy. He makes trips to Strasbourg and Brussels as a member of the European Parliament from the Conservative UMP party. And with us, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet of Le Plus,
Hello.
the interactive website of the Nouvel Observateur. Welcome to the show. Axel Lemaire, it wasn't just François Hollande who won election. 1 month later, it was the Socialists and their allies taking a sizable majority in Parliament. Now you've had 8 months. It must have been exciting on day one. Do you feel like you can change stuff when you're a member of the French Parliament?
Yes, of course. The presentation sounded very pessimistic, but if I do politics, it's because I believe that I can change things. And we've done a lot. We've done a lot to fight against unemployment by creating the Emploi d'Avenir jobs for the young people. We've done a lot on the economy with the Competitiveness Pact, and we've done a lot at the European level to save Greece, to work towards the banking union. So this is a long-term strategy. It's a roadmap. It takes time, but believe me, we're working.
It takes time, but just ask you on an institutional level, Hollande, he came in saying, I'm not going to micromanage the way my predecessor did. But when you're a junior parliamentarian, do you still get frustrated, the sense that the decision-making doesn't really happen inside the chamber of Parliament?
It's an interesting question because I keep comparing my professional experience in the House of Commons with what I'm doing now. And the United Kingdom has a very strong parliamentarian tradition, but I do realize that we have got the tools as MPs, members of parliament in Paris, if we want to use them. So it's easier, of course, if you're in the majorities, because I can go and talk to the ministers. And if I receive some comments from my constituents telling me that this is wrong, this is not working, then I can tell them directly, and we're working on the text being put forward the National Assembly.
The realities of the Eurozone, Arnaud Danjean, do they make it that they have the decision-making, well, basically has been predictable since Election Day?
Well, you know, I think the major change in the Eurozone now since François Hollande was elected is that nothing has really changed, as he promised. He promised a big change. He said France would be in the forefront of renegotiating a treaty, the fiscal treaty. He said France would put new things into the European project. Well, so far, he has not done that, and I would say luckily, and we're still on the same track.
But did you not notice that nobody's talking about a Greek exit any longer? It wasn't the case 6 months ago.
But this is not due to François Hollande's policy. François Hollande just followed the path of the others. For more than 2 years now, all the European leaders have been saving Greece over and over again. So there is no big change either on that front. He said that he would bypass Germany, create a kind of a southern front against Germany. He said that, of course. He said that every council before. He said, yes, we will do with our allies from Spain, we do with Italy. We try to to have Germany coming to a more flexible position, a more flexible policy. We will renegotiate the fiscal treaty. Nothing of that happened. None of that happened. So on the euro front, there has not been so much changes. And I would say luckily, because we need some stability and we need to keep the same policy to make our finances sane. And this is a long-term effort, so it's better not to change all the time from the policy.
Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, have
Yes.
things panned out the way you expected they would back in
I think things have changed with François Hollande, and this change has a name, which is austerity. Obviously, this is the biggest austerity plan that has ever been put into place in France. This is the biggest austerity plan ever. We've never seen something like this. 30 billions, 10 billions in new taxes on revenues for the
Rich.
If not for the rich, for the rich partly yes, but for everybody, we will. Everyone in France will pay more next year. When you buy, I don't know, metro subway tickets, you will pay more. When you buy a cigarette, you will pay more. When you buy some alcohol, you will pay more. They even wanted to tax the sodas, which didn't happen. It will be a tough year, but maybe it had to be done. But anyway, François Hollande did it. He never talks about austerity. He never says that word. He never uses the word, but he does it all the time. So we are in a huge austerity plan for next year.
And do the French know that?
I think they kind of feel that hard things are coming. I mean, when you see the polls,
But
when you see the
because there seems to be a double
every
game,
poll
right,
is-
between
Yeah?
what people say and what they do.
No, I
They-
totally disagree. I mean, I
People
live
are
in
living
the
under harsh conditions in France.
I live in
You
the
can't deny
United
that.
Kingdom. I can tell you about what an austerity plan is. It's got absolutely nothing to do with
Not
austerity.
yet. Come
And-
back in France in 2 months or 3 months.
Well, then the
Or
president
maybe we don't see the same
and
places.
the
I don't
government
know.
are very honest and sincere about this situation. I mean, the public debt has doubled.
But I'm not blaming
in
the
10
government for
years.
taking these austerity measures. I'm just saying that they are putting.
But
austerity
austerity
measures
is
into
about
place.
reducing public expenses. And a third of the current budget is about reducing expenses. 2/3 is about increasing
Yeah,
taxes.
I know the words.
Especially,
I know the wording.
no, it's
yeah.
not wordings. It's increasing taxes on the high incomes. It's not wordings. I mean, the 75% tax. It's not wording. You've got the proof of that.
VAT is not on the high revenues.
Yeah, VAT is
and
for
especially
everybody.
the mid-level of VAT.
VATs for primary goods,
No,
for
no,
food,
no, that's-
for
that's
energy.
totally-
we're talking
I know
about-
the wording. That's not the
we're
truth.
talking
that
about the
everybody
mid
experiences.
VAT.
But
Well,
I know the
7
wording.
to 10%. That's a
when
big
you
difference.
when you pay less taxes to buy a banana,
But I'm not
This is not
again. I'm
wording.
not blaming the government for doing it. I love and I
I
enjoy
think it-
paying more taxes. That I think it's a citizen thing. When you're a citizen
Yeah,
in
write that
country,
down.
you have to pay more taxes if you have more income than others. I think that's a good thing. I'm not Gérard Depardieu. But I think that you have to call a cat, as we say in France. You have to call austerity measures.
Yeah. But when I
austerity
see
plan
the
and
pu-
austerity
when-
plan.
when I see the
Everybody
public
sees that this is austerity.
cuts-
Why don't you call it that way?
because I'm looking at
You will.
the
You won't
cuts
fall more in the
in the
polls. You
social
can't fall
sector.
more.
No, it's not about the polls. It's
Yeah, I hope
believe
so,
me,
because it's not working.
No, exactly. I live in the United Kingdom. I can see how the public services, education, health, help to the disabled people are just being attacked, cut, and we're not doing
No,
that
we
in
don't want
France.
to live
That
in
is
Britain.
what
I agree with you
austerity
on that.
is.
Yeah.
All right, let's look, because I asked each of you what was sort of your defining moment of 2012 when it comes to politics. And Axel Lemaire, you chose Europe winning the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes, I think it's a historic moment. Europe has been through 2 huge world wars, and it seems to me sometimes that we haven't learned the lessons of that. So when I look at the increase, and you're in a very good position to see that from Brussels, the increase of populism, of extremism in many countries across Europe, I find it extremely worrying. And I think we should again start thinking about Europe as in unity and as a force in the world.
Critics say it's either the perception that it's an award for deeds that are 50 years in the past or something that hasn't quite yet happened in the future.
Well, it's a promise.
Arnaud Danjean, what are your thoughts on that award?
I was very happy and somehow very proud as well. I think it's worth remembering where we come from. We are young Europeans, French. It's the first time in history, not only in the century, in history, that you have 3 generations in a row living in peace. And that's something extraordinary when you consider it historically. So I think it was a tribute to what some European statesmen have achieved. It was a tribute, and it's also a kind of a promise for the future, and also a reminder of what we have to do, what we have to deliver in Europe itself, because as you said, and I share this view, populism is rising, and it's very concerning that the young generations in our countries now are considering this Nobel Prize with some despise, with some contempt, considering it marginal or even totally vain. And we have to do also on the international scene. Right at our doors. I'm working on that on daily basis, I would say, in the European Parliament. We are too often absent, we are too often shy, we do not affirm and assert a strong foreign policy or defense policy, even in our neighborhood. So we have a lot to do to make this prize concrete for the future. But it's a good tribute for what has been achieved for the last 50 years.
So a work in progress, but at the same time, well-deserved, you say. Arnaud Danjean, your defining moment of Hollande's presidency, his first European summit, where he took the train to Brussels, insisting all austerity all the time is not the answer, and promising a better deal for the French.
France's position is simple. We have to respect our priority to reduce deficits, but we have to include growth in our programme, not only for France, but for Europe as a whole. And if we include growth, it will be easier, or at least not as hard, for us to reduce deficits.
François Hollande has had a mixed time of it, getting more growth on the table from Angela Merkel.
Just by words. It was just wording, this growth pact. Most of the money that has been promised was already on the table. And when you look carefully at the growth pact, you see that it asks for structural reform, structures of reforms on the labor market, for example, some privatizations, reconsideration of the public sector, and so on and so on. So it was just wording.
But she has grudgingly accepted, for instance, more powers for the European Central Bank.
Yeah, but it was not Hollande's work. It was Mario Draghi's decision. And I think the two interesting leaders in Europe, beside Merkel, who is, of course, at the top of the leaders in Europe, it's not François Hollande. It's not, of course, Rajoy. It's Draghi on the one hand and Monti on the others. They brought some new things in Europe, not Hollande. And Hollande was just promoting things in France by having a nice wording for his troops. But basically and concretely, he did not achieve anything on the European stage.
With Germany now heading into election campaign mode, what can François Hollande get from Angela Merkel in 2013? We saw she was quite tough at the last summit of the year in Brussels.
It is tough. I think he's got a strategic position a little bit between the north and the south, but this would be too simplistic as a description. But because he's got allies in Poland, in Ireland, for example, depending on the subjects being negotiated.
I don't see in Poland
he's a link between Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain, and the more Nordic states, because he talks about fiscal responsibility, which is something that the northern countries can hear and want to hear, but he also talks about integration and solidarity. So I think he plays the role of a bridge in Europe at the moment, especially as Germany is entering a stage where the country is basically going to be frozen. So, and it's very important to have a strong duo with Germany, but also to talk to all the other European partners, which is what he's doing.
We don't have it. We don't have this duo. I'm sorry to say that, but we don't have this duo anymore. We don't have this duo anymore. The duo more often now in the European summit, it's Monti Merkel. It's not Hollande Merkel. We don't have this Franco-German duo. And on the discussion on the budget, the last discussion on the budget, we even had a rapprochement, something which is totally bizarre, a rapprochement between London and Berlin. To freeze some expenses and to lower the budget, something that has never happened in the past. So this duo does not exist anymore. Right, and I do regret this, but it doesn't exist.
Just briefly before we go, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, your defining moment of 2012 was the standoff over Florange, where you have a profitable steel mill and a money-losing blast furnaces. And there was at one point this threat to nationalize, which never materialized.
It's a defining moment in Hollande's presidency because it should have taken the strong path from a communication point of view and regarding his own stability, political authority, everything, he should have taken the strong path.
Instead, he let the industry minister and the finance minister and the prime minister sort of duke it out.
He should have worked together with Montebourg, who is rising in popularity now in the polls because he has taken a strong stance on this debate. He has always been talking about nationalizing Florange, saving our national tools, national production system. And I think it's something that people want to hear. They want to know that they will be protected from all this globalization that they see as a threat more and more. And we talk about Europe, but they don't see French people increasingly, especially low-income French people, don't see the globalization or Europe as something that could protect them or help them in any way. They only see the bad things happening from these places, and they want protection from the state, from the French politics. They want politics to happen in France. And if Hollande could have taken this opportunity to do something and to act as somebody who is really strong politically, and he can even say no to a big shot like Mittal. He should have done it, obviously. And I think it's a bit of a question about him. Will he manage to give a direction to his action?
So
we don't see the direction for the moment.
More forceful François Hollande in 2013.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's not still there.
Will, of course, continue.
But it's a learning curve. He's on a learning curve. He's learning the job.
He's learning the job. He's been there 9 months. But that's it for this edition of Politics. I want to thank you, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, Axel Lemaire, and Arnaud Danjean. Thank you for being with us, and a Happy New Year to all.